As school fees for private schools become more and more inaccessible to the middle class, there is a tendency to turn to tuition and to ways in which the 11 plus can be mastered and your child can get into a grammar school. Well, there are many things you can do. There's things you can do on your own, for example. Most importantly is a fluency in writing and an ability with basic maths. In addition, the building blocks of what would become the IQ, verbal and non-verbal reasoning, these are things again that you can find online. You can subscribe to things like Atom, which is a horrific American-based system which has somehow or other been taken over into the UK and anglicised, but a lot of the Americanisms still exist. However, it does give a child the opportunity to test their skills. And when it comes to writing, I think there are, well, let's look very quickly at the objective area. Can you write a paragraph with a sufficient focus? That would be, if you're writing it out, you indent it in the first line. If you're typing, maybe not. But if you're writing, definitely. The same thing when you're doing direct speech. You start a new line, you open the inverted commas, you do the punctuation, you close the inverted commas, said Wendy or whatever. Paragraphs need time connectives, the introductions. How do you set an introduction? How do you use a past tense correctly? How do you use a variety of past tenses in an imaginative and creative way to try and get some sort of dynamic into your writing? Using the first, the third person, using the second person, and so on. How do you narrate events chronologically or thematically? Can you use adjectives, adverbs? Less so, I think, but can you use them? Descriptive techniques, imagery, metaphors, similes. How to describe the way as you're walking through an area. You get a picture. You want to describe it. As imagine walking through it. Imagine what your five senses would detect. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? And so on. What do you taste? Can you comment on events as they occur? Can you use ambitious vocabulary? I would strongly recommend that anybody who is aiming to do a decent 11 plus exam should be learning a new word every day. For example, do you know the word bucolic? Learn it. Can you write a decent conclusion? A conclusion that is anticipated. A conclusion and an introduction should be brief, to the point. Is your spelling accurate? Your spelling will improve if you study etymology. If you try, every time you find a new word, you work out where it's come from. Is this Anglo-Saxon? Is this Latin? Is this Greek? And this will define in many ways how you spell that word. It will also define how you treat plurals. So the plural of octopus is octopodi, never octopi, because it's Greek, not Latin. Your ability with basic punctuation, terribly important. Can you use a full stop properly? Can you use a semicolon? My favourite bit of punctuation, the colon. Question marks, exclamation marks, use them very rarely. And within sentences, are you comfortable with brackets? Sentences that are grammatical, make sure they are. Sentences are making sense, make sure they do. And how do you connect sentences, conjunctions, and, but, therefore, so, and finally the last two things, your style, your fluency, your detail. Detail is everything. And one of the details which is perhaps paramount is legible handwriting. Because if you can't write legibly, if you can't be understood, then it doesn't really matter what you've written. Nobody's going to read it. So finding a tutor who can look at all those things, who can ensure that your student, that your child can deal with those things in for example, writing an essay, writing a piece of criticism, looking at a poem. Do you know how to analyze a poem? It's not just about ideas. It's about how these ideas are assembled and the tightness of the lines. I would teach students how to look at rhythm, particularly if they have a musical background. Is this an iambic pentameter, or is this a trochee? Does this line rhyme with that line? Where's the metaphor or simile? The various poetic devices. These things can be learned early on. And if you learn them, frankly, you have an advantage. Learning something new every day, and really quite young children can manage this. And I'm afraid a lot of time in schools is spent idling away and looking at rather useless handouts. Much better to focus on the nuts and bolts of how to write and how to do maths and how to visually assemble something. And by the way, when you're looking at visual clues, verbal and non-verbal reasoning, I don't think you should discount the value of computer games. Some of them are very useful in speeding up awareness of spatial awareness, speeding up computation. So don't dismiss anything. Everything is useful.